Welcome to IMIT Seminars. We created this space to help MSK specialists immediately impact their patients, businesses, and personal lives through relevant discussions and practical insights. Let's jump on in. Hey everybody, Sean Flanagan here from IMIT Seminars, and I'm really excited about today. I got Jon's on a Zoom call today, and we're going to be talking a little about his specialty courses that are going to be coming up here in November, and then we have them coming in next year too, so definitely get online and check those out. We're going to talk about the sports course today, as well as the pelvic health course, so that you guys have a good idea of what we have coming on and what Jon brings to the table. So, Jon, how you doing today? Looking forward to seeing you over here next month.
Sean, yeah, I'm good. Thanks. Looking forward to it. It's been a long time. It's been nearly 2 years since I've been to the US. Just come back from the Middle East. Been over in Dubai teaching there. Been teaching some of the courses that we're going to be talking about. I've been teaching the sports course and the women's and pelvic health. Went down really well. They invited me back to do some more, so it's always a good sign.
Dubai's on my bucket list. I'll get it over there sometime. We'll see. Yeah. I guess it's a lot like the desert, though. You come over here and say, this is just like Dubai.
Do you know what? It's two places that I find are very similar, is Dubai and Arizona. And people are probably going to roll their eyes at that. But a lot of sand, a lot of heat, a lot of big shiny buildings, and a lot of American cars, a lot of trucks, a lot of Raptors, a lot of F-150s, a lot of Mustangs. Okay. A lot of Camaros.
They pay well for it, too, over there.
Well, oil's cheap there, so you can drive a big 7-litre V8. Huh. So yeah, they love a big Raptor out there. So great.
We won't talk about our prices here, or our oil prices here in the States. It's not a healthy topic. We'll stay on target.
We'll talk about healthy topics. We'll talk about some health topics.
Yeah, right. Jon, I'm really excited because we have both the sports course coming up next month as well as the pelvic health course that's geared both towards men and women. Let's jump into the sports course. Kind of give me a summary of really your objectives of that and what people should expect as they come into it.
Yeah, I suppose what I found over the years is my sports course is a little bit different from other people's, and I found that first in the UK a few years ago. What I often find is generally a sports course tends to be just what I would refer to as sort of straight up MSK, so looking at very localized, very muscular type problems. It's a lot of trigger point style needling, it's a lot of muscular needling and so on, and it's tends to be very firm, the needling tends to be in a certain type. And what I find is when I work with sporting organisations, so I teach for the Premiership in the UK, which is the elite level of soccer in the UK. So the Man Cities, Leicester City, the big clubs that you might have heard about. And I teach for Institute of Sport, the English Institute of Sport, which is Team GB. I teach for Sport Wales as well, which is their head organisation. And when I go into those organisations and I talk to the guys about needling, those who already needle have got a preset idea about how they needle. And they sort of take the attitude that they're not going to needle just before competition, or they're not going to needle the day before because athletes get very sore and so on. And what I try to explain to them is the problem with that mindset is they've only got one style of needling because they're only thinking about one approach, one mechanism. So the problem then is you've got a modality in search of a pathology. So you've got a set time you can use that. And one of the things I'll be talking about on the sports course is a number of different reasons why you can needle. This is something that falls into the Dynamic Integrative Needling system all the time, the Hobbs Masters series. It falls into that all the time, like 5 reasons why you want to needle, which I'll expand on, another time. But I think we talked about it before in the past. But when you've got these 5 reasons, you're looking at how that fits in with the pathophysiology, how the pathophysiology meets with the mechanisms and how they compare. And what I find in most sports courses, they're focused on very limited impact or limited goals with needling. So I suppose the big difference, and one of the things that I want to get over to the guys over there, which I have done with some sporting institutions in the US. I was lucky enough to be invited in a roundabout way to speak with New Orleans Saints last year about some recovery type needling. Advised on behalf of somebody else who brought me over there to sort of assist with some things there and talk to those guys about different ideas. And I suppose what I talk about mainly in sport, more than just the MSK ideas, is how do we use this for healing? How do we use it for recovery? How do we use it for influencing sympathetic, parasympathetic response? And how some of the needling that you might be using may be too sympathetic for some individuals. And we talk about notions such as finite capacity to recover. So physiologically, you have a finite capacity to recover. So if you increase the load, you have to increase the recovery. You can't keep going to the well and drawing from it. It runs dry after a while. So how can we use needling strategies to support those ideas? So I suppose the course, in a way, covers a whole range of things. It covers localized needling for healing, for recovery. It covers needling for mechanical dysfunctions, so muscular, myofascial type needling. It covers segmental effects, whether they be analgesic or sympathetic and parasympathetic. It covers central effects. So we're really working through the central nervous system and its peripheral sort of impacts as well, to make sure that we can stack all the cards in our favour whenever we're using needling for the benefit of the athlete to get our outcomes. So I suppose that sounds very grand. I could have just told in a sentence, couldn't I? And that sounds like a long way around, but that's me. I just think it's useful for people to try and start entertaining bigger ideas when it comes to needling. We've all done the muscular stuff where we're needling the trigger point, and we're all done with that, and we're all okay with that idea. But what's the next level? And so when I look at the courses that I deliver, and I've been lucky enough for you guys to host me there a few times, and when we talk about some of the other things, I want guys to understand there's a bigger scope out there that they can start to access. And once you start to entertain that idea, and I'll always quote this, a quote by Aristotle: sign of intelligence is the ability to entertain an idea without accepting it. So I want guys to entertain the idea they can use needling to do other things. And once you start to do that and you start to try it out, you'll see how it will benefit your athletes beyond just those muscular aches and pains and those myofascial dysfunctions. We'll do those as well. We'll also do those, hopefully, a lot gentler than you used to. And what that means as well is your athlete is functional sooner. I find that quite often we're overcooking people. I actually find it in a lot of places. I find it in the UK, I find it in the Middle East. Everyone's got this idea of dry needling, that it has to, for some reason, be very, very heavy. And you have to be almost aggressive, almost like you've got to create as much pain with the approach as the person's in. And this actually comes from some quite old research, but we've moved on since then. And I'm bringing sort of 20 plus clinical years to bear on these comments as well. My background as a PT goes back 25 years. I've got a 30-year history in prescribing exercise. I've got over a 20-year history in needling clinically, and I'm still doing it. So the things that I talk about, obviously they've got a physiological base, they've got an evidence base, but they're clinically tried and tested. Because if they didn't work, I wouldn't use them. I'm not going to make myself look stupid, and I've got to treat patients and get them better. So those are some of the things we'll be talking about on the sports. It's a little bit different, but I think different's a good thing. And one of the things I say as well is, it'll challenge your ideas a little bit, but not in a bad way. It's not going to be so left field that you're going to think, what the hell's this? All it's going to be is taking what you've got, and it's almost like I explain this idea sometimes. There's this it's kind of like fable about a frog in a well, and he sits at the bottom of the well and he looks up at the night sky every night, and he can see this like circle of the night sky with the stars, and he thinks how wonderful it is. And over time, what happens is the well fills up, and he's able to climb out of the well, and he's able to sit on the wall outside the well. And what he sees now is the entire expanse of the night sky. And that's what I'm going to try and show you. I'm going to try and show you that you might have been down a well for some time, looking at the sky, and there's a bigger sky out there, and we can all appreciate it.
Yeah, that's the truth. I think I think the beauty and the genius of what you bring to the table is just this layering effect of needling, and it allows us to actually clinically reason through the N of 1 in front of us in such a way that you can take the same target, MSK target, but do something different than needle and manipulate it differently, and you get a completely different sympathetic parasympathetic response. And I think with the needling course, or with the sports course, the recovery aspect of it, and then the pre-performance and is just such a big thing. And even being able to talk about sleep habits and digestion in the sports course, and dealing with jet lag and those things and circadian rhythms, being able to influence those things is so huge for our clients, but it just empowers you as a therapist to kind of go forward, which is cool too, because we just got BOC athletic training certified out here. So we're actually going to start rolling these courses out to our athletic trainers out here in the States. So you'll be teaching a lot of athletic trainers, and this will just be great when you're changing time zones and everything. The other thing I love is even from an MSK, where you get a lot of patient buy-in when you go and you needle the ankle, and all of a sudden their proprioception and balance completely changes, or you increase strength. There's just so much that goes into it, and the breadth of it is just exciting from a treatment standpoint. It just takes the blinders off of what you can do.
Yeah, I mean, one of the courses that I teach in the UK that it's never advertised because it's entirely in-house. And what happens is some of the elite football clubs reach out to me, and I go in-house with those guys. And what I do is the typical training routine in soccer in the UK. Obviously, they're playing on a Saturday. They're playing evening, midweek. So Thursday afternoon, players go home early. So the training and the PT staff are free like on a Thursday afternoon. So I go in on a Thursday afternoon and I do 6 sort of mini courses for them. So each one's 4 hours, front loaded with a little bit of theory, and then we get straight into 2-3 hours practical. And what I do is I take sort of 20 plus years of needling, and I look at those guys and I think, right, if I could take from all that time, what do I need, beginning, intermediate, advanced, for you guys, that with that population group that you're working with, what do you need? If I was going to cherry pick from 20 plus years, what would I take from that? And so each module we do something a little bit different. So we might do systemic needling, we might do break down the lumbar pelvic, then we break down sort of lower limb, and then we'll do deep spinal needling for radiculopathic and chronic presentations. And when I say chronic, I mean reoccurring. When you've got those reoccurring hamstrings, you know, there's some other tips and tricks you can use with those. Then we'll do things like advanced needling for localized structures. So we've got an MCL. What do we do with ACL scarring? What do we do with proprioception of the ankle? How do we deal with instability or healing around the MCL? You know, as I said, what do we do with tendinopathies? So those sorts of things. And then we also look at electrostim, and we also look at vagus nerve stimulation for recovery. So each session they get a different thing. So what I've tried to do with this course is to take the greatest hits basically from that and bring it down. What I'd love to do is come to the States and do lots more, you know, because there's actually, if I sat down, I could have like weeks and weeks with you guys there and really take them on a journey where we can learn so much. But what I've done is I've brought it down to modules, because I realize people haven't got that much time. And I'm going to try and give you, okay, well, what do you really need to know? What's the greatest hits? What do you need to know? What are your Monday morning techniques? So we talk about N=1 all the time. You know, how do you solve the problem in front of you? It's okay sitting there and reading a study that says, oh, 8 out of 10 people improved with this. That's brilliant. Do that for 8 out of 10 of them. Now, when you've dealt with those 8, come back and see me and we'll deal with the other 2. Yeah. Because what we're going to do with those now, because that's the bit that separates you from everybody else, because everybody can treat the 8. What's the other 20%? How are we going to get to those? What are our other strategies? How do we think about this? How do we clinically reason? How do we rationalize? And out of that, what I always talk about on a course is, what are the Monday morning techniques? What are you going to do on Monday morning? And what can I teach you over that weekend that when you get into clinic Monday morning is going to be different from what you did last Monday, that is going to put you further forward, hopefully with your game. So That sounds like a big, big build-up, but I'm just excited because what happens is I always find that when I come to the US, everyone is really open to ideas, which is fantastic. It's just I don't know whether it's the culture of PT there, but I find a lot of people are really open to ideas and get a buzz out of sharing those with guys. The other thing I would say about athletic trainers, now technically we don't have athletic trainers in the UK, but what happens is all clinicians who work in sport have to be a PT. So it's kind of odd. So you can't work in elite sport. You know, you can't be head of department for a soccer team, or you can't be like, you know, head of rehabilitation for Team GB or whatever, unless you're a PT. So those are the guys that I teach. So transferring that to athletic trainers, it's just a name change. It's just a question of semantics. There's no difference in the language we speak.
Sciences, they have
There's
everything
no
they
difference.
need to
Yeah.
be safe and to be effective, and they that's their genius, and that's what they specialize in. So it's so easy to translate over to that. So yeah,
Oh
I'm
yeah,
really
yeah.
excited about it. I'm really excited about it.
I mean, in the
Let's,
UK, I teach PTs, I teach sports rehabilitators, which technically would be the same as athletic trainers. I teach osteopaths, chiropractors, doctors, nurses. I teach anybody who is postgraduate
yeah.
medically. And we share ideas. Anatomy is anatomy, physiology is physiology. You know, and once we start to get into the pathophysiology versus the mechanisms, and I always front load things with the mechanisms, so we all know what page we're on when I'm talking, because I know people have, with the courses that I'm teaching there, obviously, because they're like a level 3 course, I know guys will have done needling before, but they will have whatever route they've taken to needling, they'll have that knowledge, and that's brilliant because we can always build on that. And the things I say, although it'll challenge people, there's no right and wrong here. Stuff that they've done before, if I do something different, doesn't make that stuff wrong. It just means there's different techniques, there's different approaches. It's like exercise. And this is the way I say it, you know, the way you prescribe exercise, you know, there's no right and wrong exercise. You know, we just think about how appropriate it is at a certain time, and can we fine tune it to get the best outcome out of that individual. And that's probably the underpinning thing we're going to be talking about, is how do we prescribe that? How do we think of it like exercise? You know, so, you know, if you only have one type of exercise, if all you ever prescribe is flipping tractor tires in the car park, you know, then when you're rehabilitating, you know, ACL reconstruction or coronary artery bypass, you're going to struggle. So of course you would never do that. You would prescribe your exercise appropriate for the individual. That's the challenge I'm putting out there for needling. You know, think of it that way, and we'll get into that with the physiology. You know.
Brilliant. I like how you talk about what muscles you needle when you're loading into that segment, and offloading that segment, and which muscle groups to hit.
Oh yeah.
So there's so much that goes into your sports course that it's really exciting. Along those lines, if you're listening in and you own a clinic, or you have a group of people that want to be trained by Jon when he's over, if you start looking at those dates, we do some evening specialized courses for those people that really want to get into that. So reach out, direct message me, do whatever you need to do to get Jon in clinic and get him with your guys. He loves to be side by side with people. So
I love to get amongst it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm terrible. I was teaching a course last week, and somebody was telling me they've got a problem, like when they're on the course. I'm like, move over, get on the bed. Let's have a look at them now. And we just get them on the bed and start. What about this? And they got up afterwards, and they're like, I can't believe my range of movement. I said, look, this is it. You know, you've got to get in there. You've got to start having a look at things. You know. Yeah. So we talk a lot about anatomy. Break that down. Another job that I have in the UK is I lecture in cadaveric anatomy. So I try to make that as real as possible and functional as possible. I also do MSK Sonography. So we talk about the layers as well. So try and keep it as live and as interesting as possible, and touch on every level we can. Hopefully there's something there for everyone. But what I want to say is I'm talking a big game here, I know. But one of the things I say is when we get in a room together, my teaching sort of ethos is we're all friends together. I'm not looking to call anybody out. I'm not looking to challenge anyone in that way. I'm looking that we can have a trusting environment where we can grow together and just share some ideas. And if you come away from it and you've had some fun and you've learned some things, then that's my goal completed, really. So I want you to enjoy it. I don't want you to turn up going, oh, I'm going to have to listen to the Brit talking about this. And, we're going to have some fun. Listen to the Brit talk.
You can live us the whole time. It's the accent that helps us get through it. But
we'll be having some fun as well.
Your teaching style is professional. It gives courtesy to past learning and just really encourages people to explore possibilities. So that's pretty exciting. The other thing I'd like to switch gears into real quick is give me a rundown of the pelvic health course. It's both men and women and everything. Let's look at that real quick.
Yeah, well, do you know what? I've just come off teaching that over here, and in fact, this last week taught it twice. I taught it over in Dubai, came back, taught it in the UK. Going back out next week, teaching it again. Really into that at the moment. For me, one of the biggest areas you can make a difference with needling is like women's and pelvic health. I suppose again the difference in my course to other courses that I've seen out there is that, again, the idea of pelvic health that I see with needling tends to be very direct. It tends to be about what I would refer to as like structural needling. So I suppose I tend to split up my approaches in needling for, I'm going to say women's / pelvic health, because it's bigger than pelvic health into other things, but also it's not just women's health because it affects men as well. So I kind of have to put that slash in there so people know that it's going to cover all those bases. So I suppose one of the things that I do is I separate it into two ideas more than anything: structural needling and systemic needling. And if I suppose just qualify those for a moment. So when we look at structural needling, we're looking at lumbar pelvic. So we're looking at anatomical structures that we're needling directly for pain related to those structures. So down into the pelvic floor, and talk about the pelvic floor in sort of two ways. You've got the, I suppose, like the structure of the pelvic floor, and then you've got the superficial structures of the pelvic floor as well. So, we can needle those. We can get into those specific structures as well. I've always found it odd, the line that people draw from MSK to women's health. You get to piriformis, and then as soon as you draw that line underneath, that becomes women's health. And obviously the anatomy doesn't know the difference. People draw an arbitrary line about where the pelvic floor starts and so on, and what that means to function. And yes, we draw a line there anatomically, but that doesn't mean function wise you do. And the interrelationship of everything that goes on in the lumbar and the pelvic floor is so integral. So we have the structural needling that deals with that. And I do find that a lot of courses focus on that, which is great because it's very, very useful. But what I also find is the area that's lacking is the understanding of how you influence things like the bladder and the bowel peripherally. So I'll talk about viscerotomes, I'll talk about how we influence sympathetic, parasympathetic effect in the bladder, how we influence central effects, how we can influence things as diverse as overactive bladder to vulvodynia to hot flushes. So we're covering the spectrum. The spectrum is actually really, really broad. I'm going to be doing the same thing again with this course that I talked about the sports, which is taking all the stuff that I teach, and it's a very, very broad spectrum, and bringing in the greatest hits to give people a flavour of all the things they can start to treat beyond just sticking needles in the pelvis. I do a lot of abdominal needling, but it's not for the abdomen. Strange enough, it's for the bladder, it's for the bowel. This might raise some eyebrows, depends where people sit on this. And I'm not talking acupuncture here, I'm just talking needling, I'm talking physiology, but I'll needle for things like fertility, I'll needle for, polycystic ovaries, endometriosis, so many things, because when we look at the evidence, and this is entirely coming from a physiological evidence base as well, my approach to needling for women's health is very much related to the published literature. We'll do a lot of electrostim with that, but not how people think, not how you're used to using it for MSK pain, which is, I remember colleagues saying, ride the lightning. We're not doing that. If anyone gets that reference, we're not doing that. Show your age. We're not doing that one. We're being subtle. Whisper to the cells, don't shout at them. They know how to respond. The central nervous system knows how to modulate. And all we're doing is we're coaxing it into a homeostatic and healing and reactive state where it's going to do what it needs to do. We're going to be talking about how we can influence segmental and central, sympathetic, parasympathetic, but not just for things like visceratomes, not just for bowel and bladder, but how you can affect this for hormonal headaches, how you can affect it for a variety of other things. And the scope that we can expand just through the physiology. And I don't want anyone to get a little bit afraid here. We're not talking sandals and candles. We're talking physiology, and we're staying in lane, and we're staying on target with that. But the scope of what you can do once you start to understand the interaction is fantastic. And I found, the profound effects that I've seen clinically far outstrip any of the things you can do regarding pain. That changing someone's bowel or bladder function is so much more rewarding when you see the lifestyle change for them than it is just for treating back pain. And I'm not trivializing back pain there, but what I'm saying is how great like some of the other things are. We could talk about IBS, we could talk about all the other things as well. And I think what people need to understand is obviously all these things have a physiological driver, and we can influence those drivers. And that's all we're talking about, is how do we tap in and influence viscerotomal and central sympathetic and parasympathetic effects. You can do it a number of ways. It's just the needle is really useful if you know how to use it. And if you know how to layer up those effects, it's game changing. Just completely game changing for your client base and for you, because of the I just find the rewards, just how patients respond to it when they it seems so strange that you're going to put some needles in somebody and it's going to do this, but the problem with that is people have a predetermined idea of what's going on, and you've got to take that out. We've got to strip it down, look at the evidence, we've got to look at the pathophysiology, we've got to look at the mechanisms, and there's clear connections there. And once we start to explore those, nobody should be worried about where it's going, because it's on track. We're where we need to be with those things. What it is, it's just understanding different layers of mechanisms. Because again, one of the problems with MSK that I find in the UK, particularly, is if you're an MSK clinician, look at it this way: if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything you look at is a nail. So if you're MSK, everything's an MSK problem. So therefore, you need to needle it like an MSK problem. But the central nervous system doesn't work like that. The body doesn't work like that. It's a little bit more fluid than that, and it doesn't categorize itself into those notions so much. Yes, we can use the MSK structures to influence other things. So yeah, we can needle those. We're not putting these needles in bizarre places that we've never heard of before. But what you're going to see is I'll needle certain areas, and people are immediately thinking, "Oh, are you treating like a knee problem, or are you treating an ankle problem?" No, I'm treating this. They'll be like, "Wow!" And I said, "It's perineural. Let's have a look at the anatomy. Let's have a look at where we access these this stimulation, this facilitation we can get to the central nervous system. How do we access these things?" And once you start to understand that, and you only need to understand it from a rudimentary sense as a clinician to be able to utilize it, but it really opens up your game. And I'm very excited about getting over there, because I think this is the first time we've officially taught women's pelvic health, and pelvic health there, because men's health as well, all sorts of things we can do.
This course over here, and we're advertising it as a pelvic health management course, because it goes so far beyond just the MSK approach to, we understand on the pelvic floor and the trigger point model and the MSK
Yeah.
referred pain and fascial pain, and you'll get the greatest hits of those. We're not going to
Yeah.
be doing any internal evaluation or anything in this course,
No.
so you don't have to worry about that. But it's going to be the greatest hits of hitting those MSK points that are the big hitters. But then the genius of this course is just being able to go in and look at the parasympathetic and sympathetic input into the bowel and bladder, and how we can influence digestion, and how we can influence overactive bladder, and then even for the men, the pelvic floor pain, the chronic pain, erectile dysfunction, and different things. Is that's the excitement of it. It's being able to manage these things versus going in and finding a mechanical MSK point that's the problem. It's how do we influence that region? How do we influence the systems? And it broadens it. I know a lot of courses advertise those type of things, but they've not been trained in the depth and breadth of how to do that like you. So it's going to be really exciting to see people's minds go, hey, I see this a lot, and if I just add these couple things in, the impact I can have on chronic pain and trauma and different things, because that shows up a lot with pelvic floor for both men and women, and post-surgical things, and so I'm just really excited about this class, and it's going to be hugely beneficial for men and women's pelvic health specialists.
Yeah, I mean, I've been treating women's pelvic health for 20 years. I kind of, it was never my intention to do it. I was kind of thrown into that position because I took the attitude that I never turn anyone away if I thought I could help them. So probably I was a little bit more adventurous than some of my colleagues at the time into what I would treat, because I always feel like an obligation to treat if I can. So it grew into digestive health to start with, and then women's health from there, because obviously going from bowel into bladder was just an easy transition. Sounds wrong, but there we go. And so it taught me a lot about digestive system, and then got into the reproductive system, and then got more into the mechanics of what's going on there as well. And that grew over, and that's grown over like 20 years of clinical practice. So again, the stuff I talk about, very much like on the sports course, is coming from a place of test, retest. Did it change it? Did it not change it? Where are we going from here? It's not coming from theoretical base. It's not coming from, I saw this in a study, so I think I'll try this. Yes, that's what's informed my decision making, my practice to start with, but then it was the application of that over the years that's led me to this point. And ironically, and this sounds crazy, but for 20 years, I tried to give that work away to colleagues because I thought, oh no, I don't know enough about this. I don't know enough. And 20 years later, I find I'm still doing it, and people are still coming to me and asking me about how to do these things, and I'm still treating people, and I'm still getting results, and people are still coming back to me and saying, oh yeah, I've noticed this, I've noticed that. And again, guys that I've taught will reach back out to me and say, oh, thank you for showing me this. This was great for this. Oddly enough, last week in Dubai, I bumped into a guy he's from Greece. I hadn't seen him in about 8 or 9 years, and I taught him in London 8 or 9 years ago. And he reached out to me a few years ago, just by email. I can't remember where he was working. And he asked me about some points for inducing labour. Again, there's evidence for this, so stay there with it, but inducing labour. So I gave him some points, and he went away. And then whilst I was teaching on the course last week, he introduced me to his wife, who was also a PT from Greece, that he met when he was in London. And that was the woman who he induced labour in. It was his own wife, his own child. And she came up to me and she thanked me. She said, oh, thank God for those points. That made a big difference. I'm like, oh, there we go. The story's come full circle. And it was kind of nice to have it from a patient years later that it was beneficial. So then she'd come on a course to train with me to find out what it was all about. So that was a nice circle round. But we'll be talking about N=1 again. We're talking about problem solving. And I suppose what's different about these two courses, if you've done courses in sport or you've done courses in pelvic health before, the difference in this is there's going to be layers here that you haven't encountered. And there's going to be discussion, there's going to be techniques that you haven't done, there's going to be application. And not only, it's never just about where you put the needle. You know, two most important things about needling is where you put the needle and what you do with it. And we're going to be challenging those ideas as well with this. So again, I'm going to say it's going to be some fun. It's going to be interesting. We're going to learn something. Going to share some ideas. I'm going to learn some things off you guys as well. Always do. So looking forward to it. I'm so excited I am. No.
It's going to be a long time. It's been a long time, so I'm looking forward to it. Again, if you influence pelvic health therapists and you want to get Jon around the people you influence, reach out to me and we can host some courses and some different things next year as he's coming out and see you on the course. So we're really excited about that. Jon, thanks for sharing that. I think it's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. 2022 will be a great time here in the U.S., but meet with us next month and kind of get your feet wet and see what we're all about here. I have a couple of announcements as we're kind of getting into this here. We do have some courses coming up. So his sports course is going to be here in Phoenix, November 13th and 14th. That's going to be the only offering this year. We'll also have one next year with that. And then we also have coming up is the pelvic health course will be in Atlanta, Georgia, November 6th and 7th. And then it'll be here in Phoenix, November 20th and 21st. So Jon will be here with us those first three weeks of November. We also have some of our foundational courses coming up. So DIN-2 will be coming up here in Atlanta next weekend, October 22nd and 24th. And then we'll jump into DIN-3 here. Let's see, there's DIN-2 in Phoenix, November 5th and 6th, 6th, 7th. So those are your two opportunities for DIN-2. But we'll also have DIN-1 is going to be in Atlanta, November 19th, 20th, and 21st. And then again in Phoenix, December 17th, 18th, and 19th. So those are just great opportunities for you to kind of come in and really see what we're all about. If you've taken any type of needling before, you can attend one of our advanced courses. We'll respect your prior learning. If you want to learn the Hobbs Master Needling System, the Dynamic Integrative Needling System, which really comes from a segmental approach that looks at dermatomes, myotomes, bristlectomes, sclerotomes even. If you want to learn that and you've had previous needling, we give a significant discount to honor your prior learning. So check us out online. Look forward to seeing you in a class. And Jon, I'm really, really looking forward to seeing you here in a few weeks so we can get together, have some laughs, and just really just get to learn. It's just always a learning opportunity. And you're just a humble teacher and run a classroom that's respectful. So it's also fun. I'm looking forward to it.
That's great. And if guys want to check me out on LinkedIn, Jonathan Hobbs, check me out on there. And Instagram, Hobbs Acupuncture, because that's what I'm known for in the UK. I'm the head of the Acupuncture Association of Chartered Physios, which is the biggest needling organisation in the UK. So you can check me out there as well. But yeah, looking forward to getting over there and making some new friends, having some fun, sharing some ideas, and see what we get.
Yeah, right. Looking forward to it. All right, Jon, we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye. Cheers.
Cheers.